Alright, next we're going to talk axle nuts. Front and rear axle nut. Your rear axle nut should be tightened to 78 foot-pounds. Here's your rear axle. There's one rear axle nut right here. Okay, you come around to the other side and right there. Alright, I didn't do mine because I got a new back tire, and so the people at the bike shop did that for me. But then the front, it's a little more complicated, but not really. It's pretty simple. You have two covers, one here and one here. Alright, you're going to want to take those off. At first, you're going to say, how do I do that? You're going to pry this thing off, and that's actually on there with adhesive, and then you can ruin that little designer piece that you got. So, I'll save you the effort and show you that down here is a little hex thingy right in there. Alright, you're going to loosen that up, pop right off. And same for the other side. Alright, so once you've done this, go ahead and loosen this pinch screw. Alright, and in there's going to be your axle with a hole in it. Put a drill bit through the hole so your axle doesn't slide out. I doubt it'll slide out, but put a drill bit through the hole because that's what the service manual says. And then come onto this side, and the bolt is going to be under this cover, and then you can tighten the bolt to specifications. Alright, once you tighten the bolt to spec, you will come back over here, tighten that pinch screw back up to spec, and I'm going to give you the specs in 1 second. Then you put these covers back on. And when you take those little threads out of the covers, go ahead and throw some thread locker back on it so you don't lose your cool little designer things. Alright, axle nuts, your front axle nut should be tightened to 55 foot-pounds. Okay, the front axle pinch screw that I said you had to loosen up, that should be tightened to 27 foot-pounds. Alright, now let's talk front fork and handlebars. We have the lower bracket pinch screws as well as the upper bracket pinch screws that should be tightened to 35 foot-pounds. Alright, here you have your lower bracket and your upper bracket. Alright, you have pinch screws on either side. Here are the pinch screws for the left on the lower, and then the pinch screw for the right on the upper, right here. And then if you go to the other side, it's going to be the exact same thing. 1 and 2. Okay? Then you're going to have your main pinch screw right there for the upper bracket, and the and the bolt right there. Okay, so lower and upper bracket pinch screws tighten to 35 foot-pounds. The fork stem bolt, you're going to tighten that to 27 foot-pounds, loosen it, and then tighten it to 96 inch-pounds. This is the bolt that I was talking about right there. Alright, and then the fork stem pinch screw is this one right here that I was talking about, the fork stem pinch screw. Alright, handlebar clamp mounting screw and riser mounting bolts. It gives you foot-pounds on there. I'm going to tell you it's a lot easier to just tighten it as hard as you can with your hand. And within reason, don't strip anything being an idiot and trying to be a Goliath and over-tighten it. But basically, you're going to tighten these, then tighten these. Okay? If you have the Speedo that's relocated or that's up here, you'll tighten these two first and then these two all the way. If you have the one that's down here, such as on the 48, you'll tighten the top two first, then the bottom two. Okay? Then you're going to come underneath here, and there's a bolt right here. Boom, right there. See? And then there's one on the other side that you're going to want to do also. In there, but I can't get a good angle at it. Right there. Okay, you'll tighten those appropriately, and that just keeps all your hand controls all tight and nice the way you need it. Alright, final drive. And the final drive, all you got to tighten is the rear sprocket mounting screws. You tighten those to 65 foot-pounds. Rear sprocket mounting screws. Here's the rear sprocket, and how is that mounted to your bike? With these screws. There are 5. Again, you rotate the wheel to access the screws as you need them to tighten them appropriately. Alright, we've covered 5 out of the 6 sections of your critical fasteners. The 6th section is the engine's critical fasteners. Let me say the engine vibrates more than anything else, and it is the heart of your machine. So those are more important. Actually, they're just as important as anything else. I don't want to say one thing is more important than the other, because without one system, you're not going to be able to ride. So for the engine, you have a lot of brackets. I'm not going to go into the engine, and I apologize for that. Seriously, get the service manual. But I'm going to be replacing a cylinder head gasket, for which I will need to be taking these brackets off, and so I'll cover it there. But just to give you a brief idea, on the motor here, you have this mounting bracket right here, which mounts your motor to your frame. That's why it's a mounting bracket. Alright, you have the one up here to mount the motor to the frame. Alright, and then you have one on the back, which is in unison with the fork axle, for lack of a better word to call it. Alright, and that'll be in another one, but if you can't wait for me to tell you, get the service manual. Other than that, I've showed you where all the critical fasteners are. Make sure you get that torque wrench, because I don't want you to over-tighten anything, and happy riding. Oh yeah, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave me questions or comments on the comment section, or even private message me. I like, corresponding with people, so feel free to do that if you want to.